Hello teams, I'm Patrice from First UK and welcome to First Hit Challenge UK season 2020 to 21. It's great to have you here with us this season. We can't wait for you to experience what it means to build more than robots. Now, we know things aren't exactly school as usual right now, and that it may be slightly difficult for you to make some progress or perhaps to even just meet up with your team, but that's okay. There is plenty of time this season for you to knuckle down, and there's absolutely no pressure for you to start straight away. This is an extended season. Most importantly, though, just make sure you're following whatever team lead guidance you've been given. Just to explain, from the 11th to the 29th of January this year marks what we're calling our kickoff month, which is a chance for your team to focus on jump-starting their progress from box to the game field. There may be limitations to what you can do at the moment. However, it's also the perfect opportunity for you to get creative. So when you're ready to take on this year's game, Ultimate Goal presented by Qualcomm, this video will help you get started. Now let's have a look at what's on the horizon for today. We're going to cover a quick welcome, some game rule clarifications, essential control hub updates, game strategy tips, a heads up on what's to come, and also where you can go to ask us any questions you might have. Let's run through some ideas to help you make the most of kickoff month. First up is research. We can't stress this enough. Spend some time researching anything you're interested in learning that can help you this season, whether that's to say familiarize with game rules or get inspiration for different robot designs. Perhaps even you want to just build your confidence in coding. Starting with learning what's already out there will help you massively to use that as inspiration and improve this time round. Next up is to connect. There are hundreds, in fact, no, there are thousands of people just like you taking part in First Hit Challenge around the world with a wealth of knowledge to share. Take a look at the Building Connection section in Makerspace and the missions to find out ways you can connect with other teams. You can also spend the time strategizing, which is really thinking about how your team and robot can maximize your potential of becoming a high-scoring team on the game field when the time comes. Michael is going to talk you through tips to help your thinking in a moment. And you can also head over to the Starting Your Season section on Makerspace to get started, where we also have a mission there for you too. Now, you may not have your robotics kit to hand, but that doesn't stop you from experimenting with robot design ideas that will help your team analyze all the design opportunities that could shape your robot to take on the ultimate goal game. That's enough for me. I'm now going to hand over to Michael, who will be talking through those things that I mentioned earlier. Over to you, Michael.
I'm Michael with First UK. Every year, First releases a new version of the game manual, which explains in detail how the game works, the rules, and everything you need to know to be successful. It's a long document, but it's probably the most important preparation your team needs to do before getting stuck in with building and programming your robot. In this video, I want to draw your attention to a few very important rules specific to this year's game. First are the rings. There are multiple ways to score points with the rings throughout this year's game, but one of the most important rules is that your robot must be controlling no more than 3 rings at a time. Your robot is considered to be in control of rings until they make contact with something else. For instance, once they stop touching a robot and hit the floor. This means that your robot may only carry, push, or move 3 rings at a time. And there are penalties associated with moving more than that. So you should make sure that your robot isn't designed to accidentally scoop up rings as it drives along. The second rule I want to highlight is that your robot is only allowed to launch rings towards the tower goals at the back of the field. What this means is that your robot shouldn't be throwing rings in any other direction. Again, if you're throwing rings towards any of the other perimeters, your team may be penalized. The third rule is to do with the wobble goals. You will have noticed there's multiple ways to use the wobble goals throughout the match to score points, but importantly, you're only allowed to stack rings on them during the end game, which takes place in the last 30 seconds of the match. And the fourth rule is an important one. When scoring on the tower goals, you may only score on the low goal when you're outside of the launch zone. In other words, close to the goals. If you score on the middle or high goals while outside of the launch zone, again, your team will receive a penalty. Those are 4 rules that I really wanted to highlight, as they're important to this year's game. That being said, there are a whole bunch of other rules highlighted in the game manual that your team needs to be familiar with for this season. So take some time, make sure your team understands all of the rules, and happy with everything before setting off on your project. One of the most important things to do before you start your season is to ensure that your tech is up to date so your robot works perfectly once you start programming. The easiest way to get up to date is with the Rev hardware client, which you can download for free from their website, and I'll include the link in the description below. All you do is click this download hardware client button here and install it on your computer. Once that's installed, you'll be able to get going and get everything up to date. The app itself looks like this, and it's able to update both the control hub and your phones by connecting them via USB cables. Your control hub, if you have one, came with an orange USB-C cable that needs to be connected along with a fully charged battery. Once plugged in, the control hub or the phones will appear in the hardware client, and you can see there's the option there to update all, which installs updates for the firmware, operating system, and the robot controller. And if it's a phone, you can also install the driver station there. Once those are installed, your hub will be up to date and ready to program. There are changes and updates throughout the season, so we do recommend doing this every month or so, just to make sure you're running the most up-to-date software throughout. With the hardware client, you can also access the programming environment rather than using a Wi-Fi connection with your computer, which may be helpful for some teams who are struggling to get that connected. If you have any questions, please drop me a line at teams@firstuk.org, and we'd love to help. I want to highlight the importance of your team's strategy. Although it can be tempting to jump right in and get building, the time you spend planning your strategy will really help when you get to the competition season. One of our interns, Dom, created a great strategy guide that's available on Makerspace, but I want to briefly highlight some of the key steps on here. The first step in creating your strategy should be watching the game animation a bunch of times. Make sure you have a good handle on the gameplay, the different ways to score points, and the overall components of this year's game. Once you have a good understanding of how to play the game, it's time to get into the details. Crack open the game manual and find the scoring breakdown. Spend some time as a team understanding where there may be easy or creative ways you could score points in the challenge. Remember, not everything is equal, so some tasks take a lot of work for very few points. Prioritize as a team. What must your robot 100% be able to do? What would be nice, but you could still play without? And maybe there's some things that you only want to focus on to start with. So for instance, maybe focus on the rings, but not the wobble goals, or vice versa. This year, prioritization is going to be more important than ever as schools deal with the pandemic. You may realize as you get through the season that you have a lot more or a lot less time than you initially budgeted for. So being able to know what your main goals are is going to be critical. Before you finalize your priority list, it's time to check in with the team once more. What are you as a team awesome at? And what are some of your weaker points? If your team is great at building, but not as confident in programming, you may want to focus more on the teleop mode rather than the autonomous. Or, if your team has experienced building a lifting mechanism, but has never built a launcher, maybe it's something to prioritize. Again, adjusting your priorities based on your strengths. And finally, get going. Once you have your priority list, get building and see how you go. You may realize you were overly ambitious or far too cautious, and that's okay. As you progress through the season, revisit this list. Make sure your priorities are still on track and relevant. Best of luck, teams. May the strategizing begin.
That's awesome. Thank you, Michael, for all of that. Teams, I hope there's lots for you to take away from today's session. Just a few heads up before we go. Remember, Makerspace is packed with resources and information to help you navigate the season. Spend some time sifting through, and you know what? Don't be afraid to reach out to teams. They'd love to help you too. You can also do a quick search, have a look online, see what resources are out there that have been produced by other teams who have also taken part in the challenge. If you have some time to take part this month, I would recommend heading over to our kickoff checklist, which is highlighted on the main course page on Makerspace, and choose which activities you'd like to get stuck in with. There's plenty of there for you to choose from, depending on where you're at the moment as a team. If you haven't already, we recommend your team lead requests a mentor to remotely support your team this season. There are industry experts from our amazing partners, and they're super determined to see your team win and also overcome any challenges that come your way. There's a link in the kickoff checklist on Makerspace, or you can head over to our kickoff blog post where you can complete the form from there. We have to stress, the sooner that you apply, the faster we're able to hook you up with a mentor. So make sure you fill out that form so we can get you sorted. We'll also be continuing to share important info and tips throughout the season to help you along the way, either as live webinars or recorded ones like this one. We'll let your team lead know when the next one will be scheduled, sooner to the time when things ease up a little bit. Now that's it from us. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us via our email at teams@firstuk.org or over in Makerspace, where you can click the blue speech bubble at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and we'll be able to get back to you as soon as possible. Any links that we've mentioned today will be linked in the comment section and blog that this is featured in. We hope you found it useful, and we'll see you again soon. All right, good luck for the season, and bye-bye. Take care.